Hey, everybody, welcome to the Buck Brief. We've got David Reaboi with us now. He is a Claremont Fellow and also can bench press more than any of you listening to this. Trust me. Trust me on that one. David Reaboi, good to see you.
Great to see you, man.
So let's, by the way, if Miles is nearby at some point, we might need him to make an appearance because I've got Ginger running around here in the studio too. So,
Cute. Miles is just here, but he's passed out.
oh, he's sleeping. We don't
This
want to
is his
interrupt
nap
him.
time.
He's
Yeah.
got the creative stuff is flowing. We don't want to interrupt Miles. Let's dive into this, shall we? It's crazy on the campuses right now. You know it, I know it. NYU, Columbia, Emory, Harvard. Yeah, I mean, just go down the list. There's dozens and dozens of them now. They're doing these Palestinian, or I think they're calling them Gaza solidarity encampments now. Let's start with this. Why this issue? A lot of stuff going on in the world.
Well, that's a very good question. Lee Smith had a wonderful piece several months ago about the kind of Palestinian social contagion, so to speak, that has kind of overtaken the world as a cause celeb. I think there are many parts to it, and it kind of defies an easy answer. But there's no question about it that for the last several decades, the Israel Palestinian issue has been the tip of the spear for the most radical of the campus protesters and activists. In my opinion, I think the very fact that Hamas is as bloodthirsty and savage as it is, frankly, is a selling point for these people who who love to glorify and revel in revolutionary violence. I think it hits their sweet spot exactly.
Well, what do you think the psychology is behind that? Why would you see some of these kids? First of all, a lot of them, it's interesting because I've been following this closely. Some of them are wearing masks, and they say this explicitly because they don't believe the dominant narrative that COVID is no longer a problem. So there's clearly like anxiety disorder and emotional instability issues involved here. Others are worried about their identities, the job prospects being pulled from them, facial recognition software being used, stuff like that. At least that's what they're saying. But why is this worth sleeping in a tent in the quad and having police officers pepper spray you and shoot you with rubber bullets for, some suburban kid from the New York area who's never done a thing like this before in his or her life? Do you know what I mean? What's the psychology
Yeah.
behind it?
Look, I mean, people get wound up with these things. We saw it with the George Floyd BLM riots a few years ago. And look, the left is very good at this. You mentioned how these protests and encampments are popping up in universities across the country. I mean, that's not an accident. For many years, the left has had an infrastructure dedicated to making sure that these things do pop up in different places. You see the photos all around that they've brought, it's like they all went to REI and ordered the same sleeping bags and tents. Well, that costs a lot of money on one campus, and it costs a heck of a lot of money on as many campuses as it's going on. And that money can be traced back to Tides Foundation, to George Soros, to all of these leftist radical, very wealthy leftist radicals who really get off on creating, on rubbing off the scab of society and creating this type of discord, especially with frankly the people who are the dumbest and the most easily led segment of our society, which is elite university students. The folks the least able to grasp what is going on in real life.
Where do you think this
So that's what you see happening.
So where's it going with these campus protests? Do they just continue on for weeks? Can the universities, with the help of law enforcement, shut these things down? Where do you see it heading?
It's funny. I mean, I think that's anybody's guess. what I think should happen and has been happening thus far, little by little, is that the donors that contribute tremendous amounts of money to keep these universities going. There these the endowments are for Harvard and Yale and Columbia, are more extensive than some countries. And I think eventually the donors are gonna be disgusted with this, especially as the stories are coming out about kids being harassed. I mean, a lot of these kids, especially the Jewish students on campus, um, they're just completely overwhelmed. And it's not a case. I see some people online saying, these folks are getting what they deserve. They're elite Jewish students in Ivy League universities. Well, I'm not sure that that's true. The folks who are identifiably Jewish in these places and identifiably pro-Israel are, by and large, not leftists, and that's never been the case. So what they're doing is they're getting rid of their good students in favor of their problematic students, let's just say, and they're activists. But look, I mean, the main issue is, professors and teachers and and other academic leaders at these places have been pushing this line and teaching these kids exactly about this. Hamas is
Yeah.
wonderful. Al Qaeda is justified. On and on and on and on for the last several decades. So, I mean, people are surprised that something like this is happening. I think they shouldn't be. So, to answer your question, the donors I think are going to put their foot down at some point. The school administration is not going to know what to do because they obviously are sympathetic to
Yeah.
the protesters, the rioters, on one hand, but on the other hand, they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Look, I think it's fantastic for America to see what is going on in these places and just to get the measure of these places and the types of crazy people that they produce, crazy and antisocial people that they produce. We have another issue here involved, which is that Hamas has been a designated terrorist
Wait,
organization
I'm,
since
I'm, I want to put a
1987.
pause. I want to put a pause in the Reaboi
Okay.
machine here for a second. We're going to press the pause button. We'll come back to this on Hamas, the designation, Israel dealing with it, the Rafah final stage of the campaign. We'll get into this in 1 second. But first up, from our sponsor, Bear Creek Arsenal, it's time you got introduced to this line of firearms. They're phenomenal. Made here in America. Bear Creek Arsenal is an amazing company. Great story of its founding. And the firearms are so compelling. When you see the quality and the price point, you can't do better, whether you're talking about long guns, pistols. Bear Creek Firearms in Sanford, North Carolina, that's where they're manufactured, has got you covered. Incredible firearms, everyday value. You're going to love them. And they're precision oriented. I've got their BC 15 model, which is like an AR 15 style semi automatic rifle. It is phenomenal out at the range. I was just shooting it 2 weekends ago. Really, really enjoying the Bear Creek Arsenal AR. And also, I've got the Grizzly, which is their pistol. And it's just so well made. Feels so good in my hands. Handles the recoil so well. Go to bearcreekarsenal.com/buck and use promo code BUCK for 10% off your first order. That's bearcreekarsenal.com/buck. Use promo code BUCK for 10% off. All right, David. Hamas is a designated terrorist organization. I want to let you finish your thought, and we'll also get into some of how Israel is handling all this.
Sure. In 1987, the U.S. government designated Hamas as a foreign terrorist organization, which it obviously is and has been since its inception. And so we have, let's say, law enforcement in the United States has the ability, and frankly, they have the tools to go after these protesters based on that. When we had the George Floyd riots, BLM in 2020, it was a lot more difficult to do so because because these people were protesting not in favor of, not in support of necessarily a foreign terrorist organization that has been designated as such. So it's like we've already got the paperwork. uh, done on this, 30 years ago. So now it's just a matter of will. It's just a matter of will in using them. And I'm not saying that, charge the dumb kids, marching around Columbia and Harvard with terrorism. But you can certainly use the tools of law enforcement to unravel the funding mechanisms and the command and control mechanisms by which these types of efforts proliferate. And I don't think there's a question about it based on what's going on, that these people are, straight up supporting Hamas, straight up providing material support to terrorist groups.
We'll
So
get
I think
into
it should be done.
we'll get into how the Biden administration is handling this politically here in a second. But, more Americans are buying gold now than at any time in recent memory. Gold is up in value 13% this year. A new Gallup poll says Americans purchasing gold is a better investment than stocks and bonds for them. Price and value of gold is connected to world events, and it grows in value over time. It's one of the many reasons I own gold as part of my financial plan. It holds value, and it steadily increases. Whether we're contending with regional bank closures in our country, global instability, war conflicts abroad, owning gold will benefit you. I rely on the Oxford Gold Group for my gold and precious metal purchases. Nobody can predict the future, but we can prepare for it. The Oxford Gold Group is here for you for just that reason. Call the Oxford Gold Group right now. You could qualify for up to $10,000 in free precious metals. 833-995-GOLD. That's 833-995-GOLD. Okay, David, the Biden administration seems like quite clearly they're trying to have it both ways. What do you think this is going to do to the Jewish American vote going into this election this fall? Will it matter?
I'm not sure if it's going to matter. Look, people have been asking these types of questions for the last 30 years or more. Actually, probably going back to the 1970s, when dealing with Jimmy Carter. Will this finally be the straw that breaks the camel's back in terms of the Jewish vote? And I think the answer is yes and no. Jews are overrepresented in terms of how politically engaged they are and how much they donate to candidates. I think I saw a statistic not long ago that that a Jewish American is like twice as likely to contact their congressman when they have an issue or when there's a something that they believe in, just to try attempt to lobby them than other Americans. So I think people who are very involved in the political process, let's say American Jews who are very politically involved, will continue to do so. And that definitely has an outsized influence, and it has an outsized influence relative to the number of Jews that there are, because at the end of the day, Jews in the United States are concentrated in places where, frankly, it doesn't matter all that much to to a presidential election in November. However, there's some places like, for example, in Michigan or in Pennsylvania or in Arizona, where on the margins in a close race, it could definitely mean the votes, the election goes one way or the other. So I think on the margins we're going to see something, and I know anecdotally I've seen and my friends have seen a lot of movement on this score, with a lot of Jews just saying, what's going on, and sort of beginning to reevaluate their political alliances with the Democratic Party based on this. There have been some high profile leftist Jewish entertainers, for example, who've been pretty outspoken and not voting for Biden and considering voting for Trump based on what they've seen from this administration the last few months. So, the answer to that question is I don't know. I'm always hopeful that there are more Jews who are ready to leave the Democrat plantation. But on the other hand, the Democrats are also very smart about this type of thing. And the way they've been dealing with it is, I think personally, I think it's evil, and it's wrong and it's rotten, but it works. and they've identified Bibi Netanyahu as their main enemy. And one of the things that I always say, I've said for years, is that the left and the Democrats do not have any foreign enemies. They have foreigners that remind them of their domestic enemies. And that's exactly the playbook that they're using in sort of identifying Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, saying, he is basically a Republican. He likes Donald Trump. He's a fascist, right-wing extremist, etc. And he's the reason why we're in this mess. That, just like Chuck Schumer said, if we only ditch Bibi Netanyahu, the whole region will be peaceful, everything will be calm, and everything will be fine. So, I mean, I do worry that this particular offensive line will work on a number of Jews, as frankly, it has worked on a number of leftist Israelis. So,
we'll see.
I hope it doesn't, because it's nonsense, but we'll see how it goes.
Just want to remind everybody at home that for the purposes of being able to speak out and defend yourself verbally, so First Amendment rights, or heaven forbid, but having to defend yourself with Second Amendment rights, PatriotDefender.com will provide you with a no-cost legal defense. If your constitutional rights are violated, Patriot Defender is there and has your back. So go check it out. It's a membership organization that I'm a partner in, PatriotDefender.com. And when you see all the things that are covered, concealed carry weapon usage in defense of yourself or your family, First Amendment issues, if you have consequences against you because you speak out against the Hamas lunatics on campus or something, they'll provide you no-cost legal defense. Go to PatriotDefender.com to learn more. David, I know we've been talking about intense foreign policy stuff and also domestic policy stuff, but I just want to know, as for anyone who doesn't know this, because they're not watching on video, you are, do you consider yourself a bodybuilder, or are you just like, would you say you're an amateur bodybuilder? Right. Yeah. I mean, you look like a bodybuilder.
Yeah. I mean, definitely amateur. I mean, I'm competing. So definitely amateur.
Oh, you are competing. I didn't even know that. That's amazing. Yeah. Congratulations. That's so cool. So when people, for folks like me who are, who are just amateurs at like trying to stay in shape for life, not for competitions, calories dropping down to lose weight, should that be is that just the thing that people should really focus on, and also increasing steps, or is this getting the protein level as you're dropping the calories, even if you're not trying to bodybuild, a critical component of that?
Well, the latter. It's definitely the latter. Cutting calories without minding your macros is completely silly. Now there's some truth to the fact that, at the end of the day, it does come down to,
overeating is overeating, right? I mean, if you're ingesting 4,000, yeah.
Right, exactly. I mean, when I began this and I knew very little about nutrition, then I would just say, well, protein is good, therefore I can eat, 4 steaks in a sitting. And I mean, that at the end of the day, that's not good for anybody. You could definitely, and look, when I was doing that, I didn't see progress.
You can gain or maintain an overweight frame, even just by eating protein, if you're just overeating calories net.
Yeah. I mean, no question about it. The thing to do, and I always say this to everybody, because it's, you can't get around it. There's no easy way to do it that sidesteps this particular step. And the step is, okay, go get a phone app. There are many free ones that will allow you to track your food intake. And it's very easy. You just go in, and if it's like, if it's a packaged item, you can literally scan the number, and it'll go in. It'll add all the macros that pop up there automatically, and then spend a week or spend 2 weeks tracking every single thing that you eat. And very quickly, you'll be able to see what's going on. And, frankly, it doesn't take a registered dietitian or anyone like that to look at it and say, okay, well, I'm obviously eating too many carbs. I need to increase my protein, or I need to pull back my fat a little bit. And I'm going to do that by eliminating X, Y, and Z, because once you see it in the app and it's charted out for you day by day, it's very easy to see that and to make adjustments. So it's like, if you can't do that, then you're going to be spinning your wheels for a long time. And it's really not that hard to invest 2 weeks into this data gathering procedure.
Yeah, I mean, this is like when people ask me, how do I start a podcast? I'm like, well, step one is you have to actually do it. Because I get people that come to me, it's like, didn't we talk about this 6 months ago? I want to start a podcast. I'm like, how many have you done? None. I don't know if you really want to start a podcast. So it sounds like tracking your food is a preliminary step for better health. So I'm going to give this one a shot. David Reaboi, everybody.
It's a necessary step.
Necessary step. David Reaboi, follow him on Twitter, or now X, and Claremont Fellow, foreign policy expert, my friend. Good to see you. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, buddy. See you soon.